So I did a recent video on the old Betfair exchange simulator. When Betfair set up a betting exchange in the US, they created a simulator that did a rough job of showing everybody in the US what an exchange was about. But anyway, they've reintroduced one, which I think is a good move. I don't think it will be of particular use to anybody that uses BetAngel, simply because you will be much more advanced than this anyway. But nonetheless, for people who've never used an exchange or for demonstrating the concept, I think it would be pretty helpful. So I thought for people who've never used an exchange, and especially for people who are outside of the UK, who have no access to an exchange, it's worth you having a look at the site and for me to explain how you'd use it and what it does. But I'll also appraise it for people who are perhaps more familiar with the exchange concept and perhaps use a piece of software like BetAngel. Now, if we look at the URL, you just visit simulator.betfair.com. That's how you would find this particular simulator. And then when you join, you will be greeted with a screen that looks like or is similar to this. Betfair have put some help up here as well to show you what is the exchange, how you place a back bet, how you place a lay bet. And they also give you the concept of in-play betting as well, which is where you can bet after the event has started. Your account is set up with a demo amount of £1,000. If you are messing around and you want to go right back to the start and have your £1,000 again, you can just click on the reset account button, and that will basically reset the demo account to the state that you see it when you first use it, which is where we're at now. There are a few settings on here as well. You can basically show cash out, and you can do other stuff in there as well. It's entirely up to you if you want to use that. These settings are available on the normal exchange, so that's a positive. In its current state, at the time of recording this video, there's only one football match and there are loads of horse races. So that's your choice, basically, if you want to do that. The interesting thing about I don't know, maybe they will add more markets on there eventually. But basically, you don't get to see the football match in the pre-off period. You only get to see it in play. We'll have a look at that in a second. But the horse racing is sort of fairly realistic from the perspective of you get to see horses loading up. You get to see a variety of different action. You get to see it in running and all of those sort of things. But you can see here there's very limited time that we could do anything before the race has started. So fundamentally, from that particular perspective, you wouldn't have much time to mess around before the race actually turned in play. But you can actually see here that the horses are being loaded. One of them is playing up, and therefore actually the race doesn't start until a little bit of time. So that is actually quite realistic. This is typical of a horse race, especially in the UK. It may not go off at post time, but you can see the sort of layout that they've created here, that if we actually look over here, you can see these are the bits you wouldn't see on the exchange. So this is a timeline that they have created alongside the pictures so that you can basically jump backwards and forwards and experiment. So we could jump forward to after the race is finished, halfway through the race, halfway through loading, and then you can skip backwards and forwards. So say, for example, you just wanted to understand how to place a back bet on an exchange. We could go in here and back something at odds of 10, and then you'll see that reflected on the P&L on the exchange and all of those sort of things, and you can cancel those positions and so on. One of the advantages of the exchange is that you can actually back at a price that doesn't exist. So let's put this in at 6 point, as fast as I'm doing it, it's updating. So if I put this in at odds of 6.4, the bet will actually sit in the market and wait, and then you can see that it's got matched from that particular perspective, and it's confirming this down here. So, you know, on the exchange you can basically ask for a price and it simulates that accurately, and it waits for the order to get filled and stuff like that. So it behaves in a sort of a similar pattern than you would typically expect from that. I'm going to turn off the highlight when odds change because I just find that annoying. So you can see our order is sat in there at 6.2. It's somewhere in with this £209. So all of this is sort of fairly, I wouldn't say accurate because you can't get it 100% accurate, but it acts in a similar way to the the way the exchange works. So you may find that helpful from that particular perspective. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a keep bet here and update that, and that means that that bet will get carried over to the in play period. I'm not going to wait for this horse to load, I'm just going to wind it forward a little bit. And the race is going to get underway in a second. And they're off. And you can see that Candid, I didn't know this was just a fluke. Candid actually got off to a good start. You can see it's in the lead here, and therefore its price has shortened. So I'm guessing that they used real pricing from this particular race. So I'm going to cash out my position. I've got £2 on him if he wins. If I hit cash out, then I will make a little bit of money regardless of who else goes on to win. That's one of the advantages of using the exchange as well. So yeah, I think the racing side of things is reasonably accurate. And if, for example, we look, the great thing about the way they've done the racing is there are lots of different market types. So if I go into this particular market and then use my balance of £1,000 to get involved in this particular market, I don't like the way that the everything's not displayed on the screen. You have to sort of shrink your screen a little bit to get everything in there. But then your text looks a little bit small. I prefer larger text. Maybe I'm just getting a bit old. You can see my £1,000 order has been matched here. If I press consolidate, then that will consolidate the bets at a certain number of odds. So you can see we've got £1,000 matched in the market. At the moment, we're slightly underwater on that particular position. But one of the things I do like about the way that this operates is if we actually look at all of the racing, they've got a variety of different types of races. So this one is basically a maiden at evens. If we look at this market, what have we got here? You can see there's something priced at 152. And then we'll look at the last race on that particular card, and it's a bumper. It's a National Hunt flat race. But as we go across all these different markets, there are many different scenarios here. So actually that's typically what you would expect to see on a typical card on every day. There are many different types of races. They behave in different ways. But also you can see where you've placed positions in the market. So we were actively trading this market. I can go back in there and then see how we're doing from there. In fact, what we'll do is we'll wind it forward a little bit. You may be interested to know that when I look at these markets, I can actually trade them in a similar manner. They have similar characteristics to that which you'd expect in a normal market. The last guy's loading. We've made 362 on this trade. I cheated somewhat there. Let's cash it out for £181. Boom, there you go, 181 quid, whatever the result in this particular race. Bonus. So yeah, you can see that you can trade it in a similar sort of manner, but obviously you can cheat because you can look at what the price was there, and you can see it was at 240 here. It's contracted quite a bit. Everybody's been backing it, but ultimately you can take advantage of that. You can see that if you rewind the market, it remembers your initial position, but it doesn't remember your closing position. You've basically scrubbed the trade up until that point. So when you're actively using it, you have to take that into account. I'm going to take our profit again there. Boom. Oh, look, I've got £182 all over again. I only wish things were this useful. That behave like this in normal life. But I would say that actually the way the horse racing markets are behaving must come from historical data, because they behave in a very similar way to the way that you would typically expect. Obviously the fill rate is probably going to be slightly skewed because it's a simulation, but the general behavior of the markets is fairly similar. So yeah, it's an interesting addition. The thing that I didn't demonstrate here was the football match, and that was because it's an unrealistic scenario. There were 2 late goals in this match. They only show you the last few minutes of the match. It's a Brazilian match, and that sort of doesn't make much sense. The football match works in the same way, but it's fairly obvious that Flamengo are losing here at the moment. We can back them at very large odds, and they score 2 late goals. So you're going to make an awful lot of money on this match if you go for Flamengo or you lay River Plate. So you'll see the goal go in here. But I don't think that because, I mean, obviously it's difficult to simulate a football match because it lasts for 90 minutes. I don't think it's a particularly realistic scenario for a football match, whereas the horse racing is. But nonetheless, you will be able to mess around with different scenarios and get used to the concept of jumping in and out of the market given certain scenarios. Hopefully, they'll add a few more football matches that are a bit more realistic, like a dull 90-minute 0-0 or something. But I don't know how they would simulate that. But yeah, so hopefully that's given you an overview of how this works. If you use BetAngel, you can log in via practice mode and you actually practice against live market data, real markets, real fill rate, or as good as we can get, cross-matching, all of those things. And therefore I suggest if you do have a Betfair account, then logging in via BetAngel on practice mode will give you a more realistic feeling. And of course you can use ladders and automation, Excel, you can use everything in practice mode on BetAngel, whereas obviously on the Betfair simulator you're just restricted to using a web interface, which isn't particularly conducive to trading. However, it does allow you to get used to the exchange concept, and therefore I suggest that if somebody is completely new, this will allow you to mess around to your heart's content without any risk to your money. It should help you get to understand the exchange concept a little bit better if you've never come across one before. Anyhow, that is the new Betfair simulator.